Hey, you guys, welcome back to Rebuilding and Recovery. My name is Tracy. I am a recovering heroin addict and a therapist. And Rebuilding and Recovery is where I share my recovery stories and tips to help you build a happy and successful life after addiction. You guys can connect with me on my other social media platforms. I have them listed below the video, as well as more information about myself and my story and my services. Before we start, take a minute, hit the subscribe button. I will wait for you. These are my Halloween decorations, by the way, you guys. I just wanted to point out that this is not my typical home decor. I do not live in a goth mansion. That might be kind of cool though. This year I'm going to be the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. A pretty caterpillar though. Tell me what you guys are going to be this year down below in the comments. I'm back with a story time. Today I am going to be sharing about my time not once but twice in the recovery capital of America, Florida. Now, there is some controversy around the recovery capital of America. This controversy is not my controversy. I am not here to share my opinion on whether this rehab center is fraudulent or good or bad or whatever. A lot of people say that the rehab centers down in Florida buy their patients, that they persuade people into coming here, that they charge their insurance or they charge these people thousands upon thousands of dollars to provide subpar treatment. And then people kind of often stay down in Florida and continue to get high. So that is the controversy surrounding Florida as the recovery capital of America. And it is called the recovery capital of America because it has more treatment centers than any other state in the United States. I have been to quite a few treatment centers during my time in addiction. So I do have a pretty good idea at this point what makes a good treatment center and what doesn't. Being the first one in my family to have ever tried drugs, my parents were very scared when they saw the hole that I was falling into. So they called one of the help hotlines and they referred them to this treatment center in South Florida. I had just recently committed my first felony, baby's first felony, and I was faced with the choice of going to jail or going to treatment. So I chose to go to the treatment center down in Florida. And you guys, this was honestly like a movie. They flew me down to the treatment center. I was picked up at the airport by a driver. Unfortunately, that driver had to wait on me for about an hour because I absolutely hate flying. And I got extremely intoxicated on that flight. And then when I got to the airport, I was like, do I really want to go to rehab though? Or do I want to wander the streets of Florida homeless? It's a tough choice. And the center was also like on TV, like in those fancy commercials. It was a huge, beautiful building surrounded by palm trees. There was a pool. There was top-notch chefs. Very nice facility physically. Now, I had been on heroin for a couple years when I showed up for treatment. This treatment center knows how to detox. I did a medicated detox there. They had Subutex. They had comfort medication. They did everything that they could to make people feel comfortable during detox. Detox is never going to be pleasant. No medication is ever going to fully take away your detox, but they did everything that they could to make it bearable. I think that is 100% how it should be. The program there was very comprehensive. You saw a medical doctor to address any medical concerns. You saw a psychiatrist who could diagnose any mental illness and prescribe psych meds. You saw a therapist to work with you on a regular basis. They had groups, they had men's and women's groups, they had trauma groups, all kinds of groups. They had AA/NA meetings on campus there every night. Other treatment centers that I went to did not have all of these things, but I think that is absolutely how a treatment center should be. Now, their inpatient program lasted 3 to 4 weeks, and that was fully dependent on your need. It was, we take a look at your needs, we assess you, and we decide what you need next. Do you need to stay here longer? Do you need to continue to detox, or are you ready to move on? Now, after 3 to 4 weeks at intake, you move on to PHP. PHP is partial hospitalization. So you are supervised. You go through programs all day long, but you have more freedom than you do in inpatient. The only problem with PHP was that it turned out to be located in the middle of a South Florida ghetto. So once I found out that I could jump the fence surrounding the treatment center and find pretty much any drug I ever wanted, that was bad. At that point, I began AWOLing almost every day. That's what they call it when a client leaves the treatment center unauthorized, an AWOL. So there was a tall wooden fence surrounding the entire treatment center. You could jump the fence, nobody would know it, and be back before the techs did their checks on you, right? Now, if you were caught AWOLing, you would be drug tested. If you fail your drug test, you go back to inpatient. If you don't, you keep on carrying on. And I quickly found my dope boys and found anything that I wanted outside of that fence. I think that the dealers in the area knew that the rehab held some customers in it, so they kind of even hung out by there. Like, I was coming back in one day and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, what's up? You want to smoke?" And he smoked a blunt with me and then helped me get back over the fence. I don't know anybody down in Florida. This is crazy. I don't even know you and you're going to smoke with me right outside rehab? Okay. That was my crazy ass mindset back then. I say, "Okay, sure, why not?" I don't know, you guys. I wasn't ready to get clean, I guess. I was still pretty early in my addiction. And once I realized that I could have a good time here, I was having a good time. And I am not proud to admit this, but because I had been at the treatment center kind of longer than anybody else, I was also one of the only ones who was brave enough to AWOL damn near every day. I kind of became the go-to girl at treatment center. And I'm not proud of that because I don't like that I hindered anybody's recovery. I don't like that I was a bad influence or that I kept anybody from getting clean. I was far from the only one who was using. Even people who were not doing actual drugs were smoking spice and overdosing themselves on Mucinex. I never did that. I feel like if I'm going to get high, I'm going to do the real thing. There was a lot of spice, some Mucinex, and then illicit drugs as well. But so I was running around this treatment center. I was AWOLing every day. I was not going to the meetings and I was just having a good time. You guys, I was just having a good time. I was living crazy. And honestly, I got myself into some kind of dangerous situations. I mean, when I say this was a ghetto, I did my dirt in Cincinnati, and this place makes Cincinnati look like freaking Disneyland. I was also putting myself in situations where I was alone with men and strangers from this city that I did not know. I was out by myself at night, and I'm really quite lucky that nothing bad happened to me while I was down there acting a fool. Now, after a couple weeks of this, the techs caught on to what I was doing. They tried really hard to save me. So many techs had heart-to-hearts with me. They really tried to relate and level with me, and I just was not having it. One girl I remember told me, she said, "I feel like you need more help than anyone here." But bless their hearts, they all tried really hard to connect with me, and I wasn't having it. I just kept running. I kept doing my thing. But they caught on and they wanted me out, right? And I don't blame them. It got to the point where they were drug testing me almost every day, but I was ready for it. Every time I jumped back over that fence, I had clean pee with me and I would pass my drug test and they were like, "How is she doing this?" But eventually they caught on. And one night I AWOL'd and I came back and I did my drug test. And then I went down and I was hanging out and smoking cigarettes and chilling with my buddies. An hour later, they come up to me again and they say, "You need to come take another drug test." And I was like, "What do you mean? I already took mine." And they're like, "Yeah, you need to do another one." And I was like, I don't think so. And I left. I left the rehab center at 9 o'clock at night. It was dark out and I took off out the gate. I ended up calling one of the dope boys that I had met. We partied for a couple hours and around 3 o'clock in the morning, I came back to the treatment center and I was like, "Okay, I'll take your drug test now." And I lit it up like a Christmas tree. And at that point, I was sent back to inpatient. Then I ended up getting kicked out of the center, which I don't at all blame them for doing. I was acting straight reckless. I mean, I was just partying and having a good time, and that was not the place for that. And I fully understand that. So treatment did not work for me that time because I wasn't ready for it. Now, was the treatment program a good one? Yeah, it was. It was a good program. Was it good that they had their treatment center in the middle of a ghetto? Probably not. There was a very large percentage of people who were using in that treatment program. And I think that that was largely due to the location of the program. So if you are headed to rehab anytime soon, that is something to consider. I know that a lot of people ended up staying down in Florida after treatment. They stayed down there getting high and partying. So that, my friends, is what's called being lost in the Florida shuffle. After I got kicked out of treatment, I did go back home and I ended up then being arrested a few days later. Just something to take into consideration if you are looking for a rehab anytime soon. I will have more stories coming out on my other rehab experiences as well. But I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next Saturday.